Hi everyone, welcome to Alice and Bob. Today we talk about Polkadot 2.0. So we just concluded Polkadot Decoded. It is the biggest annual Polkadot conference in the world. And it happened in Copenhagen this year, 2023. And we got a really great and inspiring and mind-boggling talk by Gavin Wood. And I thought about giving you a summary or maybe my take on my personal perspective on what Polkadot 2.0 is. The interesting thing is Gavin Wood didn't even mention 2.0 himself. It was just out of the excitement of the community and what everyone was saying that basically people started talking about Polkadot 2.0. So you can see and you will see in this presentation that it is a shift in perspective primarily. And I tried to give my own take on it because Gavin Wood was, I think, presenting for 1 hour and he touched on fairly complex topics. So I want to give an easier introduction into the topic to give you a basic understanding from where you can start out and participate in the discussions. So let's jump in. And to give you some context, because I think this makes it fairly easy, I want to go through the progression of how we started with Bitcoin and where we are with Polkadot today, because I think it gives a very easy transition mentally on where we are going. So Bitcoin essentially provides free properties. I guess if you ask researchers, they give you different answers. But for me, it's unstoppable, it's decentralized, and it's trustless. So unstoppable means the blockchain does not stop. There are always nodes participating in the network, producing new blocks. It is decentralized, so there is no central actor working on it, and is trustless. And I think this is even the most important property that Bitcoin introduced, is the trustlessness. You don't need to trust a third party. Okay. Then we got in Ethereum, and Ethereum basically introduced an additional property, Turing completeness. So it's basically a computer. It did that by introducing smart contracts that have storage, that have different operations, but basically it's Turing complete. So it can do what any computer can do in the world. It's just expensive, let's say, performing it all on the blockchain. But it gives you the other properties at the same time. Now, the big change that Polkadot essentially is introducing is making it multi-core. So in Ethereum, you basically have a single blockchain where every project, every protocol, every program has to compete for block space within that single chain, and they all have to fight to get into a block by paying whatever the transaction cost is in a single point in time. But the issue with Ethereum is that it's fairly generic. EVM is fairly generic, and it's not as specialized as you sometimes need it to be. So this makes the cost expensive because everyone is treated the same no matter how optimized or unoptimized they are. And in some use cases, you can have much more optimized use cases. You can change consensus in a way that is more convenient. And so going for a multi-core system allows you to have multiple parallel blockchains that can specialize in certain fields, can do things better or more efficient than other chains. And so that was the basic idea. The basic idea is there is going to be a multi-chain world because a single chain cannot optimize for all the use cases. So you want multiple chains and you want to have a framework, a consensus system that allows them to interoperate easily. And so basically what Polkadot is a multi-core computer. It's a computer, and on each core one blockchain is running right now, today. You can compare this very tangibly with how your computer works. If you go into the task manager on whatever operating system you have, you can go into the CPU view. And in today's day where every CPU has multiple cores, or most CPUs have multiple cores, you will get a screen like this where you can see how the different cores are operating. And essentially, Polkadot is the same thing. It's a multi-core computer, and each parachain is running on one of those cores. But it helps to mentally decouple those concepts. So a chain runs on a core, but a core is not a chain. A core can be allocated to whatever chain comes along and has the right to consume that core. And so to condense it, how Gavin Wood put it is that Polkadot is a ubiquitous multi-core supercomputer. So ubiquitous means it's all around. It's basically it's just there. It's everywhere. It's available. It's multi-core and it's a supercomputer in a way. So it rings a little bit of a bell of the past of saying Ethereum is a world computer. So the general direction is the same. You want to have a universal computer that is available and accessible to the world. But in the case of Polkadot, it's multi-core. And so if you look at this journey of Bitcoin to Ethereum to Polkadot, it's basically a journey of scalability and becoming more powerful. Bitcoin essentially is like a powerful calculator. You can shift numbers around, but it's not Turing complete. Ethereum now is Turing complete. It's a full-fledged computer, but it's not super scalable. You can see this when there is an NFT drop and suddenly gas prices go insane, and no matter what you're doing on a computer, you have to pay a lot more gas just to use the system. And this is not a system that is fit for the future. You want to have a system where you have predictable gas costs, and you should not be impacted too heavily or at all if there is somewhere on the other part of the world there is an NFT drop. So when we talk about scalability, the best way we can achieve this is efficiency. And so this journey that we have been on is basically a journey of making it more efficient. And as we will see in the topics that are upcoming, scalability is about efficient resource allocation. So how can we build this blockchain supercomputer in a way that it is not wasteful? So for example, the transition that we see here is that you have blockchain systems, ecosystems where there are a lot of empty blocks. But if you produce empty blocks, it's expensive. There are computers running, and you wouldn't have to waste those resources. So essentially, we are looking for ways to only allocate block space when it is needed, when there is an actual need for a transaction, and then exactly in the amount that is needed. In the other perspective, sometimes you would need more block space than is currently available. And instead of having a huge spike in gas or making it inconvenient for everyone, you would like to buy more block space for your application. So this what I just described is basically the journey until Polkadot. And Gavin Wood announced that Polkadot 1.0, version 1.0 is going to be released soon. And it's going to be a long-term support version. So Polkadot is transitioning into a model where there is innovation happening, but every half year there is a version that's getting longer term support. So 1.0 is dropping, and what it means is it's time to reflect and see what the actual insights there are that we have learned and how we started to think differently about blockchain and crypto and the whole thing. And the big perspective shift that we are seeing right now is that we are seeing it's not about chains. And the example here is, let's say you have a computer or mobile phone. You don't care about the processes that are running there. You don't even care about the libraries or how many CPUs you have. A few people care, but most people don't really care how many CPUs they have as long as the system is running. It's actually about the apps that are running on your system. And as the state of crypto is today, we look at chains and the things that they can do instead of looking at the big picture and the apps that are being made available. And so one shift in perspective that we're seeing here is suggested very visually. This is a perspective of how we see Relay chain. the relay chain and the parachains today. So there's the relay chain in the center, and then there are disconnected parachains, and they're having their offerings. While we want to get to a point where we actually look at the whole system, don't care about the relay chain too much, maybe not even care about the parachains too much, but basically see a set of features, of possibilities, of things that we can use, that we can tap into, to tap into features and build apps on top that are secure, trustless, keep going, basically offer everything that Web3 has to offer. And have it all provided by Polkadot as a single thing. And so from this point on, so this is the big perspective shift that we want to take. It's not about chains, it's about apps, it's about the things that we can actually do in Web3. And everything else we build is below that. And we should only start talking about it once we grasp the big picture. And if we talk about others, we need to ensure that the big picture is shared, because then we can talk about the details in a way that's more straightforward and where we have a shared vision. So now, to go into the details and basically the stuff that is talked about most of the time, we can see initiatives, so big movements of features and projects that are being built. And the two big initiatives, it's just two things that we see, is core rental and it is Accords. So core rental, you might have heard about the discussions already. I also shared 2 videos about the blog post from Albert Habermeyer. Core rental is about block space. So when a blockchain keeps producing blocks, there is space in these blocks, and the block space gets used by programs running there. And this is basically block space. We consider it a raw material, and the raw material can then be used by apps, by dApps to offer services. And so there is a big perspective shift going from, instead of looking at blockchains, looking at block space. So Polkadot as a whole offers block space, and it can be picked up by parachains. In the future, it might be even get picked up by contracts running on the core. So we are looking at block space instead of blockchains. And the Polkadot model basically started out as having slots for parachains that run 6 to 24 months and give a predictable time frame in how long you can operate the blockchain. So you buy block space, you lease block space in advance for 6 to 24 months and have it guaranteed. But what we are seeing now is that, and this is basically a counter model to, for example, Ethereum, where you buy block space on a block by block basis, right? And so we have these contrasting models now, and this was a fairly hard problem to solve for Polkadot. It's one of the reasons why there was a very long time to market, because you build a blockchain, you have to get the slot for the crowd loan, get the block space, and it's a big endeavor. So the perspective shift and the initiative that we are seeing is to make it more accessible. And so one thing that it was already talked about a lot is pay-as-you-go blocks, pay-as-you-go parachains. But Gavin Wood is giving it a little bit of a reframe, or basically repackaging it to remove some of the clutter and make it easier. And so what we see here is that, okay, we start to consider a new term that is core time, which is basically the time that you're buying from Polkadot to execute on cores. And we will see 2 big models. We see the bulk model and the instantaneous model. Bulk allows you to rent 4 weeks of core time. And so there is a difference in wording already. It's not longer a lease, but it's a rent. So you're paying the rent as a parachain. And the nice thing is it is represented as an NFT. So if you don't need the block space, you can sell it. If you need more block space, you can buy it. And it can be freely assigned to parachains. That means you can share it. So it can be executed by a single parachain. It can be used by multiple parachains that decide to split the block space. You can use it or sell it, and to give predictability to existing projects, there will be rent controls applied. So there can be a capped price. So basically, instead of having unpredictable prices month over month, you want to have the change in price to limit the change in price. And so the proposal is to have a capped price change for continued purchases, right? So you purchase for 4 weeks, and then if you purchase for additional 4 weeks, there is only a limited amount in which the price can change. So this is basically the replacement for slot auctions. And the other initiative is instantaneous block space. So there is an ongoing sale for block space on a block by block basis. And the block space gets offered via an automated market maker. So this is going to be interesting. And if there is bulk, if someone bought bulk core time and is not using it, they can put it into the market as instantaneous core time. Yeah, and so it's a proposal by Gavin Wood, and it's not 100% clear, but this was a question that was hotly debated. But it seems to me that the slot leases are going to be sunset, and this is a replacement model with bulk core time and instantaneous core time. So to put it in a picture and visualize it a little bit, you can imagine that all of these are blockchains, or basically these are cores. So each of these lanes is a core, and then you see the orange blockchain here, which is continually producing sometimes 2 blocks in a relay chain block, sometimes 4. Here you can see they are sharing. So the yellow chain is executing a block every block, or even multiple. And then there is another chain, so green and pink are basically sharing, right? So there are different models that you can think of. Good. So this was the basic initiative to make the allocation of block space more efficient. And the second big initiative that we're seeing is accords, or how it is sometimes called sprees. And so to understand accords, let's look at XCM for a second. So XCM is a very powerful language to allow chains to communicate with each other. And so one chain can send a message to another chain. This user is just sending you funds. I'm sending you 100 DOT, or I want to execute this action. But this is basically an intent language. So one chain is sending a message to another chain that the user has this intent. But there is no guaranteed execution because parachains are sovereign and anything could happen. There could be a runtime upgrade. One chain could be breaking. So there are sources of errors why the intent would not be fulfilled. And to fill this gap, we are starting to talk about accords. And so accords are basically opt-in contracts or treaties that can span multiple chains or can be joined by multiple chains. So an accord can be joined. It is permissionlessly proposed. So any chain or any actor can propose an accord, and then chains say, okay, I'm joining this accord, I'm joining this accord. And it is like a shared module between those chains that is immutable. It has a guaranteed and in a way trustless execution, and there is no guessing. You don't have to check out the chain state or apply additional mechanisms to see if a token transfer, for example, really happened. So maybe to give a practical example, today's in chains you can see that one chain, the user is sending 100 DOT to another chain. So what happens, if you simplify it a little bit, is that this chain here burns the token, sends the message, this user sends you 100 DOT, and then this token this chain mints the tokens. But if there is some reason, and recently there was a problem where this chain upgraded, and so the communication protocol was no longer aligned. So this chain burned the tokens, sent the message. This chain said, I'm rejecting your message, and did not mint the tokens. So this is a problem. It introduces coordination problems. You need to fix it with governance if you can fix it. And we don't want that. And accords are a great way to allow multiple joins to join the same treaty and can trust that the intent will get fulfilled. So the way how Gavin Wood visualized it is to basically have this soup picture again of all the chains and all the features being provided by Polkadot, and drawing on top of this accord space. So accords are these things here on top that are being joined by all of these entities here, and it's a shared space that he started calling accord space. Let's see if the word sticks. Okay. So we have the big initiatives, Core Rental and Accords, big projects, but like well defined. And then there are a few other projects that we also mentioned. I thought it's worth mentioning them here. So it's hard to talk about big initiatives because a lot of them are big in a way, but basically these here are providing a big perspective shift, and these are things that enable it and make it possible. So I'm going to talk quickly about them and then we're done. CAPI, CAPI is an app middleware. It's basically middleware that allows you to tap into multiple chains at once and basically realize this vision of if the true apps are happening between the chains, then this is an API and an SDK that allows you to tap into multiple chains at once, light clients, and build features by consuming all of the underlying features provided by Polkadot. So then there is this initiative of the Hermit Relay. So basically outsourcing all of the features that are currently living on the Relay chain except the relaying. So this is staking, governance, and a few other features, token transfers even maybe, and putting them into system chains or maybe even accords. So this is an ongoing initiative. Then we see light clients like Smoldot. So Smoldot is an end user light client that reduces the need for RPCs, because RPCs are sort of like not really centralized, but there are very few RPCs and you get a chance of centralizing the infrastructure. And so you basically want to have light client-based access to the network instead of relying to RPCs. CK primitives, so basically improving privacy of the ecosystem. And so the initiative here is to go for small primitives that are powerful and not try to solve everything at once. And one thing that Gavin said is going to be launched soon is privacy features for collectives. So if you're participating in on-chain governance and there is a voting going on, then these CK primitives basically introduce privacy here. Sassafrass Consensus is a forkless consensus that is intended to replace BAPE consensus, and has a few nice features. So it's forkless, and in BAPE you can have forks where you can have multiple leaders selected at once that are going to produce the next block, or no leader selected at all. And so Sassafrass is intended to make the consensus more predictable and reliable. Internode Mixnet, I heard this for the first time here, is basically onion-based routing. So you might know Tor network, where you have onion-based routing to protect the privacy of a user when they are sending a transaction. And Internode Mixnet is an initiative in this direction. So curious to see what's going on here. And then last part here is human decentralization. So because the network should not rest on a few people, but rather on as many people as possible, there's also initiatives going on to decentralize all the work that is going into Polkadot by introducing collectives and more things. But I guess I talked enough for today, so thank you for watching the video. I hope you find it interesting. You can let me know what you think. If there's still open questions, I try to go into that. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at @LSandBob, and we can continue the discussion there. And I look forward to what you come up with in the reactions, and see you in the future. Thanks and goodbye.